They say the most significant shifts often occur without fanfare. You might not have heard much about a small island nation of Samoa in the vast Pacific, but beneath the calm surface, something significant was developing. A long-standing challenge, the just and effective collection of revenue, had encountered an unexpected solution. How did this seemingly modest group of islands begin to rewrite the rules of fiscal engagement? The answer, as it often does, involves a tale of vision, determination, and a clever bit of digital ingenuity. And yes, we've found our place in this special corner of the world. Now, if you wonder what does the Data Tech International do, it is reshaping the way governments tackle tax evasion. Their platform, TaxCore, secures every transaction and makes fraud nearly impossible, whether taxpayers' invoicing system is online or offline at the moment of sale. Because it integrates smoothly with any existing tax system, there's no disruption, only better results. Each transaction becomes instantly verifiable, allowing tax authorities to boost revenue, level the playing field for businesses, and build public trust. In essence, DTI delivers tax systems that are stronger, smarter, and ready for the future. The workings of government proceed, often unseen, yet their purpose is fundamental. For the Ministry of Customs and Revenue in Samoa, the task was apparent: to serve as the fiscal support of the nation. But as the world changed, so too did the particulars of tax administration. What event sparked this quiet alteration? Our story starts with a woman central to this effort, Theresa Kyoto Amosa, as she explains her role and the initial spark that brought TIMS into the Samoan context.
Okay. So in a nutshell, my role is essentially to provide tax policy advice to government. And we are also the analytical arm of the ministry. So we analyze all the data that's collected, and then it's through that we can provide tax policy advice. But we're also responsible for improving our internal processes. So every month we do a review of the performance of the ministry, and if we see a change in process that is necessary, then we come in and we recommend to our technical services. And then we also do revenue forecasting. So those are just the main functions of the division that I look after. And then with the addition of the tax invoice monitoring system that we now, manage as well.
Every important undertaking faces its doubters, those who suggest it cannot be done. Introducing a digital system into a setting with a strong reliance on traditional methods undoubtedly met with its share of skepticism. Yet, the story often takes an unexpected turn when innovation meets resolve. What were the initial difficulties in setting up TIMS? How did the team in Samoa get through the inevitable questions and worries? And more importantly, what clear improvements began to appear once TIMS was established? We examine the effect both in numbers and in personal experiences, as Samoa saw an alteration that many might have considered improbable.
So yes, there was definitely a lot of resistance. And for a small island country like Samoa, when it comes to technology, it's very hard for our local people to accept the idea of using technology in their everyday business operations. So that was one of the biggest challenges for us, was to try and address these concerns. As you may be aware, Samoa definitely has a large cash economy. Still do a lot of things manually. So it's changing the taxpayer's mindset. That was one of the main challenges for us. Not only with the taxpayers, but even internally within the ministry. Because, mind you, we were also learning as we were implementing. So, you know, But the way in which we dealt with this is that we definitely, and I do acknowledge DTI's, just attitude towards implementation is that you actually helped us implement in a successful manner because the commitment that DTI showed in terms of even putting together the materials, the training materials, helping us identify the roles and responsibilities of our internal staff who should be involved in the committee to make sure that implementation was very committed, which I must say is very rare because, mind you, this is only one of how four systems that we use at the ministry. And one thing that I've actually picked up from DTI is the commitment that you have that to ensure that our internal processes really benefit from the use of the text invoice monitoring system. But that was one of the biggest challenge. And I'm sorry, I failed to mention earlier that one of the analysis that we had conducted back in 2019 was looking at the tax gap analysis. And what we identified is that there's definitely a lot of the risk of underreporting was very high. And how we did this was we looked at the number of registered taxpayers and then the number of returns that they were actually filing, and there was a huge gap, huge discrepancy. And that's how we realized that the difference between what we should be collecting through tax revenues and what we were actually collecting at the time, there was definitely a huge gap there. And we saw that the deliverables of the tax invoice monitoring system would help us address that risk, would help us solve that risk. I can honestly say that implementation of the tax invoice monitoring system has contributed to the increase in our revenue collection. And I say this because in the midst of the COVID pandemic, we were actually reporting an increase in our VAGST collection. So what happened was that once taxpayers were aware that we were actually monitoring their sales, they started declaring the actual sales in their tax returns. Just knowing that now there will be a direct linkage between the transactions that they have on a daily basis, and we would actually be able to capture it in the back end and are actually monitoring it. This really changed their mindset as well. And I must say that's I honestly feel like taxpayers are now more aware of the tax laws, because before, just sorry, it's a little bit of a backstory here in Samoa is that we always have that mentality where taxpayers come, apply for a business license, and then they just go on operating the businesses with very little commitment to actually comply with the tax laws. And then came this project, TIMS, and now we were actually capturing their sales on a day-to-day basis, and all of a sudden they were now paying closer attention to our tax laws. So I think that's just another change in the behavior that I've actually honestly noticed ever since we've implemented TIMS. A success story from the perspective of a business is that so one of the large companies in Samoa, our tobacco manufacturing company. Now, this particular company has the largest contribution to excise taxes. Um, and ever since implementing TIMS, they've actually given us feedback as to how much more analysis that they could also do because of the information that's available to them on the taxpayer admin portal is that this is all evidence based and they could monitor their sales, and that has really helped them, which the same case as well, I must acknowledge the commitment by DTI because this is one of the first lot of companies, large companies that we had to deal with. And because this is a company that was part of an international chain, there were actually some difficulties during accreditation. And what happened was that DTI team was actually on board trying to adjust to the time difference so that they could work together with the developer of the AFD components that this particular company was using. and managed to come up with a non-transferable accreditation type to suit the business nature for that particular company and make sure that it's fully compliant. Now, the success story from the perspective of the ministry would be the detection of sales underreporting. And I can say for a fact that we've had a number of audit cases where we have detected deliberate underreporting by a few of our large companies. And the result of that was that these companies had to come in and pay for the shortfall, but also the penalty that was applied um, for their underreporting. So those are just some success stories. Tax compliance has definitely improved. And I reiterate the fact that taxpayers actually now make an effort to read our tax laws and comply, because just knowing that now the ministry has this tool to monitor them on a daily basis, it actually influences their behavior as well. So there's definitely been more interaction between, before we actually had to chase down taxpayers. So, because they weren't filing on time, they weren't paying on time, and we didn't have the resources to put together evidence to pursue, further actions, enforcement actions for these taxpayers. That has definitely changed since the implementation of TIMS.
Behind every successful application lies a network of cooperation, a meeting of minds and skills. For Samoa, the progress with TIMS was significantly shaped by an alliance with a technology partner, DataTech International. What was the nature of this relationship? What specific qualities of TIMS, powered by TaxCore, made it particularly effective? And when the unavoidable difficulties arose, how did this sudden partnership prove to be the key to getting past technical and regulatory hurdles? The strength of this bond holds crucial insights into Samoa's fiscal development.
I must say that it has been very positive and efficient. The manner in which DataTech International responds quickly to any queries that we put through. And one thing that I do appreciate is that there have been several occasions where we've been requesting for reports that are not part of the standard reports in the back end. And, this was to suit, particular needs that we have in terms of using the data. And DataTech International has always had a very positive attitude towards helping us. And another difference, this is me comparing the experience that we have compared to the other vendors that we deal with, is that I feel that DTI actually is genuinely committed to making sure that Samo benefits from the system. Because unfortunately we've got cases where other vendors, they just want to sell their product and that's it. But for our experience with DTI is that sometimes we don't actually realize the sort of reporting that we need, and the recommendations have actually been initiated by DTI as to how we could use the system to really improve our processes and to improve tax compliance. The fact that there will now be that, this is the first time that Samoa is equipped with a tool that would directly link a business's point of sale to the back-end office. So I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that eliminating that human error, human intervention that would affect or try to manipulate the numbers that or the data that we gather. So I think that is what really made us believe in how much we could benefit, because over the years there have been many ways that we've been trying to improve tax compliance, but it's been very difficult for us because the methods that we had used previously still couldn't provide us with this, um, direct linkage in terms of we don't even have to do much. As long as we set up the EFT, we make sure that the taxpayers set up their own EFTs on premise, then we have that assurance that all the data relating to their sales is actually being transmitted through the backend. So yes, and with the regulatory requirements is that the DTI really presented to us in a manner that would help our legal team draft up the regulations really quickly. I must say this must have been, part of the top five list of regulations that we had done in terms of the, just very little time that it took for us to draft this. And this is because, we were provided with as much information, as much materials as we could. And the other aspect that I really appreciate about it is that, and I think Gordon, those that dealt with us earlier could attest to this, is that there were times when we looked at this from the perspective of taxation and we actually questioned some of, the features on tax core, but the response that we were given always gave us the assurance that okay, we should really put our trust in the system, and we know that we will reap the benefits from it. So just the level of commitment and involvement at the operational level as well, I think really helped us.
With the groundwork laid and significant progress made, attention naturally turns towards what comes next. What lessons has Samoa learned from its experience with Teams that could serve as a guide for other nations starting similar modernization efforts? And what does the future hold for Teams itself within Samoa? Are there further developments planned to strengthen their fiscal structure? The insights shared here could well be the guide for others seeking to deal with the complexities of modern tax administration.
I think one of the main things that they could really benefit from is picking the right people to be involved with implementation phase. Um, and I think that's one thing that we did right in Samoa is that because in the Pacific, once you talk about system, you automatically think, oh, ITT. But for our case, we really involve the technical teams and the senior management as well, because once they become involved and take ownership for it, there's also that sense of responsibility and accountability, and linking that to their performance indicators so that it actually really pushes them to make sure that they implement or they conduct their respective roles, because sometimes it's really hard to get the buy-in of key people as well. So if you make them a part of the whole process, and then it's so much easier. Yeah. So I guess what I'm trying to say is picking the right team. Definitely the scope. Because currently there's a threshold where by businesses with annual sales of above 200,000, those are the only businesses that are actually required to comply with the TIMS regulation. Now, moving forward, we would definitely like to remove this threshold, because honestly, that threshold was actually it was a political reason behind that threshold at the time. But you see, the thing is, those that are below the threshold, that's where the risk is very high in terms of non-compliance. Mind you, these bigger businesses, they have accountants, they have other, standards that they need to adhere to. It's the smaller businesses that we really need to bring into the system and monitor. So that is, that's, from my perspective, going forward, is that we would definitely like to convince cabinet to in the future remove this threshold because we would like all businesses to comply with Tim's regulations. Because what's happening now is that we are monitoring the businesses that are either that either have the largest contribution to our taxes or are at least, partially or highly compliant. And then leaving the small and medium enterprises that fall below the threshold, that's where the risk is. So I guess in that regard, we would very much like to expand the scope of Tim's. And of course, over time, with experiences as well, is that we would be putting through requests on new features that might help, both from the taxpayers and but also in the back end office to help us.
Our exploration of Samoa's quiet tax alteration comes to an end. But before we fully appreciate the extent of their achievement, one final question remains. If the people behind this effort could offer one piece of advice to others considering a similar path, what would it be, and in its simplest form, what single advantage has TIMS provided to Samoa? The answers, drawn from experience, offer a powerful endorsement and a fitting conclusion to this remarkable story.
Oh, that's easy. That it actually works. And I must admit that, at the start, there was definitely some concern. We were essentially echoing to the taxpayers what the TI team had told us. These are the benefits for government. These are the benefits for taxpayers. These are the benefits for consumers. And I must say, though, that as we were delivering the awareness program across taxpayers, at the time, we hadn't realized these benefits. So if you don't know what I'm trying to say is that we really had to put our trust in, these benefits. And now it's been what, going on to 5 years since we've implemented. And I must say that it actually has worked. And the benefits that we were singing about during the initial rollout of TIMS, we are now realizing these benefits. We've seen that through improvements in our tax compliance rates. We've seen that in the improvement of our revenue collection. Oh, and I must point this out. One, major impact that TIMS has actually really shown in Samoa is that it has really earned the trust of the donor partners. Samoa is a developing country. We rely heavily on donor partners as well. And of course, these donor partners, every year they put through grants or, technical assistance, financial assistance. One thing that they really like now is that they're seeing that Samoa is implementing a system that holds people accountable and that there's actual monitoring being done for our taxpayers. So that has fostered a culture of trust as well between, government and our donor partners. So, that's what I'm trying to say is that, we are definitely experiencing benefits from tax invoice monitoring system. It's unlike other systems, which I won't name, but, of course, when you're trying to sell a product, you think about all these benefits. And then later on, we realized that we weren't able to actually see these benefits come to life. But in this case, we're very fortunate and we think that it was definitely one of the best investments that we've made. So the fact that it has equipped Samoa with a tool that would immediately change taxpayer behavior that then flow through to improving compliance with our tax laws, and then resulting in improved revenue collection for us.
Now you understand that Samoa's quiet tax shift proves big change can come in small packages, fueled by smart choices and strong partnerships. Remember how they started their revolution? Not with noise, but with purpose and tech. The punchline? Trust in tax isn't given. It's built with systems that show, not just tell. Governments, pay attention. Samoa's TIM success offers a clear lesson. Engage with DataTech International, explore our tax core software, and make your fiscal clarity a breeze.